It's awesome to see you all here. I should probably make some post-lunch comment being on the last day, but hopefully you will find this talk interesting and gain some valuable insight out of it. So a bit about myself. I'll start things off by the fact that I grew up in New Zealand, hence this accent. So if you're having troubles understanding, just raise your hand. And currently I live in Tel Aviv, so I've been based in Tel Aviv for the last 4 or so years. I work at Rookout, where we deliver live debugging and dynamic observability products to our customers. And there I lead the solution architecture team. So our role is to take our product to our customers, implement the technology with them on their side, and make sure that they use it and that they gain value out of it. And as part of that role, I get exposed to customer issues all the time. No one's perfect, everyone has bugs. And because we're working directly with our customers, that's when we're the first to hear about issues. And so we have to tackle those and understand how we approach those. And in addition to that, because we work in the live debugging field, we get exposed to how our customers do this as well. All of our customers develop products as well. They deliver to their customers. And so I get really amazing insight into how companies ranging from tiny startups to large enterprises, how they've built their processes, what tools they use, and what do they do to tackle customer issues in cloud-native environments. So my goal for this talk is to share some of that insight with you, and I hope that you'll find it useful and that you'll be able to implement some of these techniques in your own companies. All right, so let's set the scene for the talk, and you probably know where this is going. It's finally your time to take some time off. It's your summer holidays, and you've planned to go to Disney World in Florida, go to the new Star Wars theme park, and it's all very exciting. Now, you haven't managed to take time off since before the pandemic. You work at a small startup, not many people there, there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, and you know that, and you respect that, and you've worked very hard. But it was time to take some time off, and you've done all your homework beforehand, you've closed off all your tickets, you passed on some knowledge that's in your head, you made sure to document it, you've worked with your colleagues to ensure that different things are going to be taken care of, and you said to your manager, you know what, I will take my laptop with me just in case. All right, and again, you're probably going to see where this is going. You're in the queue for this awesome ride, and the phone rings. And it's your manager on the phone, and they're telling you that all hell broke loose. Crap. All right, so what happened? So your tier 1 client, one of your top clients, they called your CTO. Your CTO said that they're on the phone with her, telling her that one of the key components in your product is not accessible. The user management component, people can't log in, they can't do anything, they can't change the settings. There's something burning, they can see a crazy memory leak because of your product. They just want to log in to disable things and change some of the configurations, and they can't. All right, so that's a lot of stress. And what makes it even more stressful is the fact that it's your tier 1 client. Your VP sales has also got involved in the conversation because they're currently renewing the contract with this client. It's a massive client. They were planning on doing a massive upsell, and this is kind of derailing that entire process. So you've got pressure from all sides, and here you are, you just wanted to go on the ride and enjoy your time off. All right, so back to reality. You're out of your holiday. This happens to everyone, right? Issues happen to everyone, and developers, SREs, engineers, you know, we have to do a lot of things. There's developing new code, there's all these boxes of what people think we do, and then there's the reality that a lot of us are really involved in putting out fires. It doesn't necessarily need to be catastrophic like the one I've described, but fixing issues, fixing bugs, it's part of our reality. And actually, a recent CoreLogic study showed that 75% of developer time is actually spent on solving bugs. Okay, so let that sink in. I don't know if those stats are similar in your companies, but that's a lot of time. And we want to make sure that not only do we reduce it, but that we give ourselves time to work on more value-added things, right? We need to solve bugs. Bugs are part of our day-to-day, they're part of our life, part of our reality, but we need to have processes around and tools and capabilities to ensure that we tackle them efficiently so that both our customers are happier, but that we'll be able to move on and dedicate our time to creating more value and bringing new features. And this is, on the customer side, it's probably more important for smaller companies than the larger ones, right? We've all heard about the outages that large companies have had, and I won't name names, but it happens all the time. It's a big impact, there's a lot of buzz around it, but we continue using their services the next day. Right, probably to a certain limit, right? If it happens every day, we'll shift, but we are kind of locked in with these big vendors. Everything's deployed on their, and with their capabilities. But for smaller companies, it's not such a given, right? So if we had one massive bank as a client, and they're our flagship client, and something goes wrong, that trust level is going to drop instantly. So for startups, those issues are even more important, and it's even more important to understand how we tackle them efficiently and quickly, because that could be game over for the company. Now, why is solving customer issues more important than just solving normal issues? And I think that's a given, right? We've got a lot of things that are hinging on our customers. First off, they pay us. They bring us revenue. If our customers are satisfied, they'll tell their friends, they spread the word. Our reputation will improve. If they're not happy, the contrary will happen. Again, even more important for smaller companies. We need to work on our reputation. We need to ensure that they trust us. If I focus more on the startup scene, I've been working with a lot of startups. Not only is the revenue important and the reputation, but also that trustworthiness, because, startups, we're continuing to innovate, pushing new things out. Our customers are, in a way, our partners sometimes, and I know we do that. We give them to do alpha and beta testing. We need their cooperation. We need strong relationships with our customers. And for that, we need them to trust us. So ensuring that we tackle those customer issues is incredibly important. And it's going to lead to the success of our business. All right, so let's go back to your holiday. And you question yourself, so how did we get to this point? Why do I need to work on my holiday? And if you saw some of the previous presentations, there'll be arguments that you don't, and we need to have processes around that, and that's correct. But I think this still happens out there, right? Someone calls you, we really need your help, please, for the sake of the company. And fear not, this happens everywhere, okay? Issues happen everywhere. People think that catastrophic issues happen everywhere, and it's not just a special case for my company or your company or someone else's company. But we can do something about it. We can put things in place to kind of tackle it and ensure that we're best equipped to address those issues. And before we do that, let's see what's changed over the last few years. Why does it happen? Why do we get issues, and why do we always need to kind of get out of our bed in the middle of the night and address them? And I think the main thing is the fact that tech changes at such a high frequency. If you're a plumber, you've unclogged a toilet. Oh, there's noise. Okay. If you're a plumber, you've unclogged a toilet in the same manner that you did 50 years ago. Nothing has changed, okay? Maybe small things have changed, but the concepts have stayed the same. For tech, we innovate at incredible speeds. We push out features all the time, really at high rates, and sometimes we don't have the infrastructure to support it. We're trying to continuously iterate, get feedback, improve, and that fast rate of change results in a high likelihood of bugs going out there. And that's fine, it's part of the parcel there. But the main thing, in my point of view, is the fact that we've moved to the cloud. Okay, the cloud brings a lot of benefits, and it's amazing, but it's also brought a lot of challenges with it. All right, so we all know and love the benefits of cloud, and I don't need to kind of convince you there. It's flexible, it's scalable. It means that I can increase the capacity or lower. I can play around with the costs, right? I don't need to have dedicated people to look after the hardware. Just with a click of a button, I can spin up more things. It's got huge benefits to us, especially for startups where you don't have all the infrastructure, you don't have all the people, you don't need to worry about everything that goes on behind the scenes. So it's amazing. And we're seeing that, with all these amazingness, cloud adoption has been increasing at unprecedented rates. So an IDC study that showed that 10% of all apps were on cloud-native environments in 2020. That's expected to go up to 70% in 2024. And that's awesome, right? Because we all get to enjoy the benefits of cloud. But that brings with it its own challenges around, how do we understand what's going on? So what are these challenges around cloud that are contributing to more issues and more difficulties around solving issues. The first one I would say is around people. So we have a lack of expertise, right? Because someone else is doing the work for us when it comes to configuration, configurations are all inside, but maybe we don't have the right skill set for that. We're using vendors' capabilities. We're a bit blind to what's happening behind the scenes, right? So we might lack the expertise in our company. And then when we're working with our customers, they also might lack the expertise as well, right? So someone is telling me, oh, this went down, share the logs with me. They might not necessarily have the access to them. They don't know who does. What configurations did you use? The other day someone rang me and they said, oh yeah, we deploy this to a new version of Kubernetes. What version? They have no idea. Okay, so that lack of expertise does dampen our ability to understand what's going on and have that visibility. The other one is that companies are still not all fully 100% in the cloud, so they're segmented. They've got ad hoc strategies, and that brings it back to us, right? So when we deliver a product, or any company delivers a product to a company, if we go to a large bank, they would say, oh yes, these instances, these applications are on the cloud, these are on-prem. There's like a mismatch of where things are deployed. It makes it very difficult, all right? And dev is sometimes all over the shows, right? So there's an inconsistent adoption of the technology, and you don't have that visibility all the time. There are other challenges associated with the cloud when it comes to debugging. And the main one I would say is the fact that we're giving up control, right? We don't know when things are going up, when things are going down. That's cool, that's part of the benefits, but we also don't have that visibility. We don't know what's going on. It's a highly complex architecture. You've got different microservices managing different components of your product. You don't know what's communicating with what, and it's very hard to get an insight into that. And your environment is continuously changing, right? And again, you're not actively playing a part in that, someone else is. And the last one, I kind of touched on that before, is the access rights causing issues. So if I ask for logs for someone, they need to call up DevOps, they need to get it from someone else, and it makes it very challenging. But wait, there's more, all right? And I think this is not just cloud-centric, but it does amplify when we come to the cloud, is that there's a bit of a lack of information. So, your customer told you one thing about the issue, you understood something else, and actually something completely different happened. It's because they don't have the visibility. If it was running on their machine, they would just be able to share everything with you. You'd be able to recreate it on your machine, you would understand what's going on. But heck, what services did you use? How did things run? All of that lack of visibility and information makes it harder to solve the issue. And then we've got people working remotely. So, you're trying to manage conversations over different time zones. Sometimes it takes a while. If something came up with my customer in Australia, they would contact me. I would wake up, then I would address it back. And even if it's not a super urgent issue, right, it's fine, but things take time. And then you're kind of slowly unpeeling that plaster, and it's just painful. All right. The other one is that we've got high pressure from the team. Okay. So again, we're working in this agile, fast-paced environment. We're expecting things to happen quickly. So the fact that this VP of sales got involved and they're all stressed out, that doesn't add to anyone's benefit, right? It just stresses us out. It distracts us from our main goal. And then conflicting priorities, right? So how do you manage the fact that marketing has already scheduled to have a PR out about a new feature and you're not able to deliver it because you need to fix this issue? So a lot of complexities around there. But don't despair. There's things we can do about this. And as I said, it happens to everyone. And there are things we can do from both the process and people behavior side of things, as well as tools. And I've got kind of engineering leaders there trying to drive the change, but engineering leaders come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and forms, right? It can be a manager, but it can also be someone from the bottom up wanting to drive change and someone really wanting to improve the way that things work in the environment and in the organization. All right, so let's have a look at what we can do from a process and behavior point of view. And having processes is important, and I think it's even more important than tools because this touch the company as a whole. It doesn't just touch the R&D department. It looks at how we interact with the different teams. How do we prioritize together as a company? How do we understand how we communicate with the customer? Who owns what? It goes well beyond just where R&D happens. All right, so let's look at prioritization. And this isn't news, right? Everyone knows that it's important to prioritize. But what I want to push for is that we have these discussions before issues come up. Okay, how do we define who's an important customer? How do we define what kind of issues are ones that are urgent? You know, if a feature that we release doesn't work, is that super, super, super important that I will now get out of my holiday and fix it? Or can it wait? You know, if this customer who only paid, I don't know, a small amount of money for one single license, if they aren't able to access the system, obviously it's not cool, but like, where does that stand versus this other customer that is now renewing? So have these discussions and have these discussions with other people in the company as well, right? Involve the customer team, involve the sales team, kind of understand what takes precedence over what. And then you have this kind of template, things that you can follow so that when crap happens in the middle of the night, you don't need to kind of think and discuss this. You know, no, this is what we've discussed, we've agreed, this is the level of urgency, let's act on it now. And remember, you can't do everything all the time. And one of the key people that would come into these discussions are your product managers. They have a high-level overview of what's going on, and they'll be able to drive some of those priority discussions. All right, what else? So to prioritize successfully, everyone needs to be in sync, and it's fine that things aren't always black and white. But if you have those main guidelines, those principles to go with, it will make it easier to understand how important it is and how critical it is to address straight away. All right, the next one is managing client communication, and I do that on a daily basis, and that's super important. We're people, and when things go wrong, we want to know that we're well looked after. You know, one of the things we need to understand is what do we tell the customer and when? Who manages those conversations? So they contacted the CTO because they're good friends. Do we get the CTO to continue managing those conversations, or do we not? Will they be able to, you know, hold the customer's hand and kind of take them through the journey of solving the issue, or should it be someone from the customer success team who manages that? Whoever you decide, they have to be there for the duration of the journey, right? You want a single point of contact managing all the interactions with the customer, so it's not a mess. You know, sometimes we see instances, especially if our customers are talking to us over shared Slack channels, and then like the engineers get involved and they're like, oh, can you try this? And can you just deploy this version with these logs? Can you share? That's a mess, right? You don't want that. It's like if you were to file an insurance claim, you don't want all these people kind of getting in touch with you and telling you, can you do this? Can you do this? What about this form? Can you fill it in? So have a single point of contact and make sure that you communicate things with them, all right? Even if you don't know what the issue is, that's fine. Don't mislead your customer, but make sure you're continuously updating them. You know, we're looking into this, we're doing our best. Make sure that they know that they can trust you and they can trust your actions. And that transparency is super important. So if something is going to take 3 to 4 days to solve, don't just tell your customer, oh, we're working very hard, so it'll be solved straight away. You know, say that this is a complex issue, we're working on it, it's top priority, but we expect it to be done by the end of the week if you've got a few days left. Okay, so manage your words carefully because, again, you want your customer to trust you as a partner in this journey. All right. Another super important thing that we want to put in our teams is having a team mindset. All right. This is to make sure that everyone in the team has a sense of ownership into what they're doing. And you build ownership through time. So this isn't just something that happens overnight. That's making sure that you trust your engineers, making sure you trust your team members to do the best they can. All right. Empower people, empower them to take the actions they need to. Don't question, don't micromanage. If someone is micromanaged, they'll likely just kind of step back and only do what they're told to, and you don't want to get to the situation. You want people to think outside the box and really care and be passionate about what they're doing. And also kind of instill this culture that there's no second team that will come in and sweep all the mess that we've created, right? Like, the company is us. We are responsible for the success of the company. What we do will drive how the company kind of grows and how successful it is. So it's on us. And make sure people know that and feel that ownership. And the last thing around processes is running retrospectives. And this has been brought up many times during this conference, and I can't stress it enough. It's one of the easiest tools we can bring into our teams to make sure we work more effectively. And we get into a habit of running retrospectives on all big issues and have all the people that were involved in a room for a discussion. This isn't a blame game, as you know. Rather, this is a way for us to look into how we can improve the way we're working. Look as a team, look at what we've done well, celebrate the successes. What can we be done even better? And what are some questions that are unknown? What confused us in this process? Having everyone involved will mean that, they'll approach the situation when it comes again in a more positive mindset, and you know exactly who's going to do what. Super important to document it, share it widely. And what we also do is we also share some of our learnings with our customers. Again, it's part of building that trust. Obviously, you'll share an incident report with them, but on a more personal level, when we have a meeting with them, we'll share that, this was taken very seriously. We've ran retrospectives. These are some of the things we'll do differently. Be open and transparent with your customers. Gauge what your relationship is like, but we find that it's super important, super viable. And we've also seen that some of our customers do that with their customers. All right, moving on to the technical elements. And I'm sure that we're all familiar with these, and these complement the process improvements that we can do quite well. These are tools. What we're looking at now are tools that will give us greater visibility into what's happening now. So when your client informs you of something, you're not working blindly. You've got your own information. You're not just relying on them sharing what they're noticing and what they're seeing. And this is crucial in order to enable you to resolve your issues quicker. With all this data, you'll be able to understand what's going on. All right. And why is this visibility super important? Because the sooner we detect issues, the cheaper it's going to be. And I know there's this rule of thumb that goes that if you solve an issue in the design phase versus if you solve it once it's in production, it's going to be 100 times more expensive to solve once it's production. So we want to get to the root cause of these issues as quickly as possible, hopefully before the customer notices. And for that, we need the visibility through the various tools that we can implement. All right, so QA. This is a no-brainer, but most of us have a lot of room for improvement. The focus here should be on identifying errors as soon as we can during the development life cycle. So we need to have set up a structured and rigorous code review process. And it's always good to have those peer reviews coming in. And just like I talked about ownership before, a peer review should be me knowing that I need to do the best I can in order for the company to grow and succeed. It's as if, it's my child, someone else dressed the child up, and now I need to give that child my tick of approval before it goes on. Have that sense of ownership so that it's not just a tick in the box that I need to do to say, yes, I've done this, move on. Really make sure that whoever does the peer reviews feels complete ownership of it, as if the entire success of the company is on their shoulder. No pressure, but make sure that they understand that it is super important. We've got things like conducting penetration tests to identify any issues and ensures that bugs that were previously identified are indeed resolved. And last but not least, set up automated tests and track and monitor the performance continuously of your product. All right, next up we have logs. Again, I'm sure everyone uses these. And these are super helpful for developers to get visibility into what's happening, especially when we run in cloud environments. We really rely on these because we can't recreate things locally. We can't depend on the fact that, yes, I'll just run it on my machine and understand what's going on, because it's going to be completely different. Now, working with different companies, I see that different teams use logs differently. Some sprinkle the magic log dust all over their code, and they collect an absolute ton of logs, and others is more sporadic. So kind of find where the middle ground is. What is viable for your company? You don't want to put too many logs all everywhere, because A, it's going to impact the performance of your application, and it's going to cost a ton. But also, when you do want to look at them, you'll get lost in all this data, right? Don't just put logs for the sake of putting logs. Put them where you think they'll be impactful. And where you do put logs, make sure you follow the team's processes on how to structure them. Make sure that whatever log you put in is going to be useful for your colleague who will have to wake up at 3 a.m. and kind of understand what's going on. So these logs aren't just for you, they're for the entire company, and we need to make sure that they're legible and very clear. So yeah, quality over quantity, super, super important. And ever think about the verbosity levels. So what do you want to capture when, and how much do you want to capture? All right, moving on to monitoring. So these give you a unique view of how the product is being used by your customers, and they'll also give you information around that your customers might not necessarily give you. And the reason why monitoring can proactively, it can really be useful when working with customers, as I said, because sometimes the customers won't know everything. They won't describe everything to you. You don't know. They don't know how they got to this issue, what happened, and so you can rely on this kind of ground truth of information to give you all that data. All right, and last but not least is dynamic observability tools, and that's the space that we play in, and there are other companies that do this as well. These tools give you the ability to capture data right from the running environment. Think about it as a live debugger where you can place a breakpoint in production and collect the data straight when you need it. So if you do have an issue and you didn't place logs and you can't recreate it locally, you can get that data straight from the cloud-native environment as soon as something happens, right? So have a look at this family of tools, see if it's something that could supplement what you're doing in your teams that will really enable you to tackle those customer issues running in cloud-native environments. All right, so we've covered a lot, but this topic is important. Issues happen to everyone, whether you've taken your holiday or not, and it's important to have these processes and structures in place so that when things do happen, you know how to tackle them. They will happen, but we want to be able to tackle them a lot more efficiently and effectively. So thank you for your time, and I'd love to continue the conversation both here and on social media. Thank you.